We're going to wait just a couple of minutes because we're about to reach quorum when Mr. Curran Price arrives. So we'll wait just a couple of minutes.
An announcement. Oh, no, you can take it off the air. That's fine. Off the air, yeah. I just I want to introduce staff, yeah.
We will now commence. I am joined by my colleagues Curran Price and Joe Buscaino, and this is the meeting of the Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and River Committee. Colleagues, at this time I'd like to go to item 4 and invite Mike Scholl up for his appointment as permanent General Manager of Recreation and Parks. That's a good start, Mike.
That's a good start. Thank you. Next. I'm just happy we're doing this item before the East Wilmington item because
there you go. Oh, okay, there you go.
Chair, if I could just read
Yeah. Yes.
Communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Michael A. Scholl as permanent general manager of the Department of Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Scholl, the floor is yours.
wow. No questions. No, I'm just let me first just say that the last 8 years has been pretty hard on this department and the city is obviously as a whole, the nation as a whole, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the previous general manager who did just an outstanding job with really keeping this John Kirkmuckery really kept a stable ship afloat, and I owe him a great deal, and he was a great mentor to many of us, and so the transition has been relatively easy, and it's been we really haven't missed a beat. I mean, the staff has just been so supportive, and I'm just grateful for both John and all the current staff that we have. But there's a tremendous amount of challenges ahead. I mean, it certainly hasn't gotten easier, but I think the outlook looks good. I think the things that we're starting to put into motion will help us, things with technology and introducing some things into the department that we really didn't pay much attention to, that will eventually help us with better decision making and help us put resources really where they're really much needed. There's many issues coming upon the department that we've been kind of on the outside looking in, things like the LA River. We need to be more engaged in the LA River, and you'll start to see some of that in our in our budget proposals and as we move forward. Certainly focusing on infrastructure. I'm a firm believer. I mean, I came from the Bureau of Engineering, so I'm a firm believer in improving our infrastructure, and I think in the long term our infrastructure can actually save us on our maintenance cost and reduce the amount of maintenance needs that we have. But we need to start focusing on some pretty old infrastructure across the park system. And then looking at some heavy maintenance programs that we used to do, things like the restroom prep program where we used to have additional restroom cleanings in the afternoons and things like that. That's kind of gotten lost over the years because of budget cuts. So we're looking at those sorts of things to try to get back to, because it's the public's perception of the park quite often is the restrooms. And we need to make sure that they feel welcome and safe when they're coming to the park system. And sometimes the restrooms are kind of that, unfortunately, that piece that makes us look, like we don't care. And then, looking at programming, of course, we're putting into place systems that now allow us to look at attendance records of all of our programs at every park in the city and really begin to look at areas where we're not doing so well on programming, and to be able to ask the questions why our programming numbers are low and why things just aren't working out. And that'll all be kind of folded into kind of a larger GIS-based data system that will help us make some of these decisions and really give not just us, but the public, all the information that they want. So we'll become a little bit more transparent, a little bit more nimble, and a little bit more able to make decisions a lot faster. And then lastly, I'll just say that I think, as we've had a lot of discussions about park rangers, I believe strongly in a strong ranger program. I don't believe it's something that we should be looking at to replace LAPD with. That's not it at all, I don't think, but I think we need more presence in the park system to help us with it, which I think also will help decrease our maintenance in some of our parks. But we need that liaison with the public for those low crimes, the crimes that LAPD doesn't have time for, the things that make a park a better park. I don't think every park should have a ranger. I just think that there should be more of a regionalized approach to our ranger system, so they're not just in our regional parks, but some of our heavier use parks. Like Harbor Regional, I think, is one. MacArthur Park in the Councilmember Cedillo's district. Parks like that, Echo Park Lake, South Park, the wetlands. There's areas where I think with a few more rangers and having responsibility in those areas that can really, really help turn the corner of a lot of issues, including maintenance, and as well as making the public feel more welcome when they come to the park. So there's lots to work on. There's no shortage of work in this department, that's for sure. And I'm just really lucky that I have a absolutely tremendous staff. Tremendous staff.
Terrific. Well, Mike, I just want to say a couple of things. I had the great privilege, speaking of park rangers, I had the great privilege over the weekend of attending one of the 125-year anniversary celebrations at Lincoln Park. And Albert Torres was there with a couple of horses and was just drawing in the kids, and it was just such a special moment for everyone who was attending that celebration that day. And it does add a certain presence, I think, that people respond to really well. So I'm with you, and I know that the communities that I represent, especially in and around Echo Park, in relation to Elysian Park, wholeheartedly support a stronger ranger program. So it's a good point that you made. And I just want to let everyone know that I have worked with Mike Schull in my professional capacity at least for 12 years, and I love that you're appointed and you're someone who worked his way up through the ranks, and every interaction I've ever had with you has always been constructive. You're really a thoughtful planner. You're also a critical thinker. I like how you always tell it like it is, but you offer possible solutions on issues that come up. Even during the Great Recession, we worked together on a lot of challenging issues in the 13th District when I was on staff. And I appreciate your approach to problem solving and your direct approach, not glossing over anything, but yet willing to work and entertain ideas and different ways of doing things, and collaborating with other agencies and even private industry sometimes to improve our parks. And so I love that you bring a completely different way of thinking, a new way of thinking, because we may not ever have the same level of resources that we had before, and I think we all know that. Right. So there's never been a better time to think way outside the proverbial box, and I think that you bring that experience, that institutional knowledge, and the right ideas moving forward with how to accomplish some of these goals we have for our parks. So I couldn't be happier with your appointment, and I want to congratulate you. And I just want to ask some very simple questions in terms of just generally speaking, what we've talked about this before, but maybe you could describe to everyone in terms of the future of the parks and some of the partnerships that I mentioned, some of the ideas with how we return the services that won't always just come from city resources. Could you address that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. I couldn't agree more on. We do need to think differently, and we'll never have the staffing levels that we once had. But I think there's lots of ways that can help mitigate that. Partnerships is one. And I know Vicki Israel here is here today. She represents she's the assistant general manager of our partnerships division, and that was one of the things that was put into place, not by me, but by my predecessor, that really was a big change in the department's thinking about inviting the public sector, the private sector into the department to really look outside, ways of getting things done. We need to continue to do that. We need to foster these partnerships. I do worry about the sustainability of some of them and whether or not they can continue on for years, but certainly it needs to be in a discussion about how we move forward on, we're building a lot of new parks. I mean, we've built almost 25 new parks in the last 3 years. There really isn't any parks agencies in the nation that's done, built so many new parks. They're not large parks, they're small parks. But, I'd like to continue that program, but we need to be cognizant of the fact of how we're going to take care of them. But, the whole thought process has changed in how we go about our parks, designing new parks. And it's also as designing new parks and designing or redesigning existing parks. And really our maintenance staff has been put at the forefront of that discussion, whereas in the past they may not have been. And having that element in there with our design staff, we can mitigate a lot of the potential issues with a reduced maintenance cost in our park system. But it's only by having them kind of hand in hand in that process. And then, like I said, in some cases it won't be us, and it doesn't need to be the city. There's lots of ways for people to partner with us. And we've made it about as easy as we can make it. I mean, in most cases, we don't actually even, collect any money directly from them. We've created ways for agencies to keep their money and to be able to pay directly to whatever improvement they're doing or whatever program they're doing. So the money doesn't come through the city of LA. And I don't say that in a bad way. It's just that we're a big, bad city of LA. And it's, if we can eliminate some of that bureaucracy, then we should. And that's what a lot of it is. If we can create an easy path, more people will want to partner with us. And so getting that message out, I think more people would if they knew how easy it was. But certainly there's loads of opportunities to help, and not just on capital, but on programming, particularly in areas of the really high need, where one of my strong focuses are right now is in those areas, the underserved areas that not that we don't offer the programs, but maybe they're just not as attended as high as what we'd like, and to figure out why. And we can do that through partnerships.
And my other question, in terms of providing badly needed services and opportunities for the neighborhoods in need, and quite frankly, partially subsidizing some of the programs for our youth, what are some of your ideas for generating revenue in our parks?
Well, there's kind of the low-hanging fruit for us is what we're finding out is potentially through, it's kind of through technology a little bit. I can't talk too much about it, but I will say, and Alex, our director of systems, I know is here, so he might wince when I start talking about this. But we've integrated some Wi-Fi into some of the parks. Echo Park's one, Cabrillo Beach is another, and I was looking at the actual numbers of people using it. And the beauty of the system is it also keeps up with the number of people that are, whether you logged in or not, it can tell if there's a person with a Wi-Fi enabled device, whether they walk through or not at the park. So why that's important is because it gives us numbers that we didn't otherwise have. And it's staggering when you look at, the number of people that are actually visiting the parks. This is scientific numbers now. We're not guessing at millions. We can actually count them on some of these. So that in itself is a potential for revenue in how you market that. The department has talked about marketing for the last couple of years really solidly. It's nothing new that I'm putting a renewed emphasis on it, but we really haven't done a good job of marketing what we have. We have a lot of assets, and a lot of assets that could generate revenue. And we're doing a better job now trying to figure out how we market those assets to make sure that they're utilized. We have facilities just sit empty and unused when there's some of the best deals in town. Mm-hmm. And they should be busy every weekend with a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a birthday. They should be full every weekend. Mm-hmm. Having two young children, I know what it costs to go use facilities and pay for things like that. And we have all these assets that aren't even used. Many of our facilities are closed on Sundays, but they could be used for events. So I think special events like that is a big one because it's just right there. I mean, we just need to have a program in place. We need to make it easy for people to know where to call and how to get the appointment and how to rent the facility. We can't make it difficult. We got to make it very easy. So I mean, those are just some really quick, easy ideas that I think we could do better and actually generate revenue.
Wonderful. Colleagues.
I too want to just congratulate you on your service and on this appointment. You certainly have the energy and the enthusiasm and the willingness to make sure that every area of Los Angeles is covered with a park. We appreciate your efforts, especially in South LA. There have been some special challenges, not only creating the resources for those parks, but maintaining the parks. And so I'm glad you're going to be on the job permanently. Look forward to working with you, and congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am so excited about this appointment. And thank Mayor Garcetti for empowering you and leading the Department of Recreation and Parks. What an awesome responsibility. My days with the city began as a Rec 3 at Bogdanovich Park. And you have an impact of not only impacting our young lives, but saving lives as well, the parks across the city. And I know that you're going to lead the way because of the work that we've done in the last 2.5 years, Mike. I'm just so proud of you. I've said that I chair Public Works, but I'd love to name a street after you because of the work that you've done in my district. And I like when you say you identify the importance of leveraging our park space for creating economic development opportunities through, one doesn't have to go so far. Look down at, in my district, down at the water at Point Fermin Park, beautiful park overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where I foresee a nice restaurant overlooking the ocean to bring the types of weddings that the park department can benefit from, or the Cabrillo Beach house, the Cabrillo Beach bathhouse, another opportunity there that we've discussed in the past. But also then talking about the pocket parks that we've created in the short time I've been in office. My weekend was spent at the parks this last weekend. My son with the flag football tryouts at Bogdanovich Park, I Heart Wilmington at Banning Park. Just see we brought back the Wilmington family picnic. Just an amazing resource that we have in the city of Los Angeles. And to know that you're going to lead the way, we're in good hands. And I congratulate you. And what I really love about your leadership style, Mike, is you're ever present in the community. Whether it's a park advisory board where you see a Debbie Rouser in my district who is fighting for Leland Park and wanting to revitalize a park that was in decline. You were there, boots on the ground, in the community, tackling the tough questions. And to know that, I don't know, how you're going to do this citywide more so, but I just love your energy, your commitment to improving the department. I love what you have to say about the Rangers. As a senior lead officer, we took a hit when we lost the Ranger program. I remember working with Ranger Ann as a senior lead officer down at the harbor. But the community sees that when they see the bathrooms are graffiti, the quality of life issues that are impacting our parks. To have that, the boots on the ground with the Ranger program, I'd love to see that come back to life. So thank you for taking on this role and leading the department to the next level and finding ways to maximize revenue. But give me your thoughts on bringing advertising to our parks, because that's another opportunity to make money for the department, especially in light of when we're shutting down pools and looking at staffing levels. We need to think outside the box, and I would love to see a Nike park in my district, sponsored by Nike. We need to, again, just think outside the box to bring in revenue, bring in dollars. Right. Give me your thoughts on that.
Probably should be sitting next to the city attorney so they could kick me when I talk. But,
He'll just glance at you.
I'll start by saying, just for anybody that's listening, absolutely no billboards. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about when we talk about advertising in the parks. No, I'm a big advocate of it. I think if it's done tastefully, and it's done with along with the community process for input, mm-hmm. I think it can be done, and I think there's ways of carving it out so in the park system that we can take benefit. We have loads of opportunities, and we've used them. We've got fields that have the Nike swoosh in the middle of them. We have lots of things that have been by different corporate sponsors that they've built on our behalf. We should embrace that. There's no reason not to embrace it. I understand the challenges the city has overall, but I think there's ways that we can do that. And we have been working, not recently, but it's been kind of quiet, I guess, on that whole front. But I don't think the discussion on that should be over. I think we need to revisit it and make sure that those advertising opportunities are made available. Again, it just needs to be tastefully done. But I've never, I mean, we've been doing this for 125 years. I mean, I grew up playing, on with teams that had, Quaker State logo. I mean, they were the local, in my hometown, Quaker State in Pennzoil had, and they sponsored all the little leagues.
Right.
We all wore their uniforms. And I don't think it caused me to think about using that type of oil my entire life. So we're not brainwashing our kids, which some people will tell you that we are. We're not. And I think it should be left up to the community. I mean, I don't think that somebody in, for example, South LA, if a corporation wants to invest in one of our parks, that somebody outside of that neighborhood should have a say. If that community doesn't care if that, their logo's on the middle of the field, why does somebody in another different part of the city care? Right. It's not their kids using it. So, I mean, I think it needs to be at that level, those types of conversations. I support it. I think we should look heavily at it. We've often said in the department that we'd like to create our own type of. We have sponsorship protocols and policies set in place, but I just I think that it can be done. I don't know that it's going to make a difference in overall the park system, but it certainly makes a difference in that local park and to that community that really needs, that soccer field that might be dirt and turned into a synthetic field. Right. We should not limit ourselves just because of a logo in the middle of the field.
Very good. Ask for an aye vote.
Very good. And we've been joined by our colleague, Mr. Gil Cedillo. And before I turn it over to Gil, I just want two comments on what you said, Joe, about renaming a street somewhere in your district after Mike Shull. First of all, it can't be O'Farrell Street. You can't rename O'Farrell Street Shull Street in San Pedro. And second of all, do it while he's still young.
You don't have to be dead, do you? I know in the parks you have to be. Okay.
All right. Mr. Cedillo.
Mike, I'm very excited, and just let me attach my comments, or myself, to all the comments of the predecessor. Obviously, this is a love fest. But there is work why we would do this, just because we like it and we care about service as you do. But there is this tough work that we have to do. You know what my questions are. We've had these discussions in my offices. Restrooms, clean, accessible, safe, and possibly staffed. How do we get to that point? Your thoughts on that?
So we're working on a program right now. It's we called it our restroom prep program years ago, but over years of declining budgets and things, there were certain things that were lost. So in the upcoming, probably next fiscal year is where we're hoping to really implement it. But we'll be hopefully implementing a team of part-time staff along with full-time staff to add a second restroom cleaning to. And in some cases, a third and a fourth restroom cleaning to our heavily used parks. Some parks may get away with just once a day. Other parks don't get away with less than 6 times a day. So, it's, but the point being, council members, is that we know that once a day is not enough, and that's the current service level right now at every park in the city. Our restrooms generally get cleaned in the morning, and then they're not cleaned again until the next morning. Well, in a lot of parks, that's just not going to work, and so the idea of the prep program is you bring in at a minimum an afternoon cleaning daily. So we're in the process of putting that together, but as I stated that earlier, I think that's a very important part of going forward on and it's one of our bigger challenges is our restrooms, because it's ultimately what parents feel when they go to the park, what their lasting impression is of that park, and whether they want to come back. And if they can't take their child or feel safe that their child can go in and use the restroom, that's a problem. So then coupled with, what we're talking about with, potentially rangers down the road, as well as, because the rangers will help deflect a lot of these maintenance issues that we have. Whether it's somebody, hanging out in the restroom that shouldn't be there for a long period of time, having those boots on the ground, walking through that park and talking to people will make a big difference. But the restroom prep program is something that I'm very interested in bringing back, and it should help address that issue of the cleaning of the restrooms.
So on Rangers, you have my support. I think Rangers play an intermediate role, something distinct. We had great LAPD, but the public responds differently to Rangers, see them more attached to the park, and we see them more as an extension of the community, or at least the park community, into the community that surrounds the parks. And so Need one at MacArthur Park.
I know you do. I know we do. I don't know you, we.
We need one at MacArthur Park, or maybe even two, and we need more. How can we help you make that
Well,
reality?
we're going to, thank you. I actually met with our assistant general manager who oversees the ranger program actually on Friday. We had a lengthy meeting about rangers. So what I'm hoping to prepare for this coming budget is a program that is regionally based. In other words, we're looking at as a ranger division in the valley, ranger division in metro, one, and then one on the west side and then one in Pacific. And under them, they'd have a certain number of parks. And obviously, some parks deserve more attention than others when it comes to depending on what the issues are. But right now, we don't have any way to deploy. We have like 17 rangers. Now, we did get 6 in last year's budget, which were for a new facility that was built, a ranger station in the valley. But we have facilities in each of the regions that if we can get them adequately staffed, they could serve those regions and stay within that region. For example, a good part of a region would be just looking at MacArthur Park, would be MacArthur Park, Echo Park, and Lafayette. All those are very large, busy parks, all within 10 minutes of each other. I don't ever think that we'll have enough rangers to stick, in every park. But if they had a certain number of parks on a patrol, just walking through the park, a few times a day, and not driving through the park, but walking through the park and interacting with the public, as you talked about. To me, that's what's going to be the difference. So I look at it as more of a regional base way of doing it, but a dedicated program that would be for different areas. I'm sure, like on the west side, Councilman Bono would say the same thing about Venice Beach, and South LA, the South LA wetlands and South Park and Harbor Regional Park. There's all these really large parks that unless you're on the ground walking it and involved you're not going to make a big difference. Because there's, somebody just driving through the park, they just turn their back. You go through and then they're done. They go back to doing what they were doing.
Right. Did you guys talk about homelessness and challenges?
We didn't address homelessness yet.
So we're a diverse city. Economically, we're making big moves on that. The mayor's initiative on raising the minimum wage, and we're diverse in our kind of cultural diversity. So, you and I grew up playing Little League baseball, and we had Bubble Up and 7-Up on our little jerseys. But now people want to play soccer, or they want to play ping pong, or they want to play other games, and we've got to. And there are, they're citizens of the city. And so we've got to be responsive to that. So your thoughts on that, and tie that into also the challenges that we have. We just did a great cleanup in Arroyo Seco. We've been doing our work in MacArthur Park on trying to manage in a comprehensive way how we move homeless into services and into houses and homes where that's appropriate, and also how we clean up the park. And we've just had great success in Arroyo Seco. And so
Right.
Share your thoughts with us on that.
Well, I think the first part of your question was talking about, just we need to address the needs of the community. So if the dynamics of the community have changed and the demographic has changed, then we need to adjust to that. I'm not a big advocate of us trying to determine what we need to do. I like to have a more grassroots approach to that and get feedback from the community. So if we have less soccer and more baseball or vice versa, then we need to adapt and be able to, because it's ultimately we want those kids and families in the park system. So if we have to change facilities to do that, it needs to be simply based on the needs of those communities. The homeless issue is a big one, and it is. And I would say recently in Arroyo Seco, a big part of that cleanup was some of our park rangers, and that they add a lot different dynamic to working with the homeless. And that would help. Having more rangers would help in that educational process to be able to get those people guided towards going the services that are out there, and it gives boots on the ground. Gives them and they're not. They're like Smokey the Bear. They're not. You can walk up to one and feel like you can have a conversation with. And they're recognizable. And so. I think they would play a vital role in that as well. With the current rules and laws we're under, it's tough. I mean, it's tough dealing with these homeless issues. But if we get more of our training, and I know the city attorney is really doing a lot of training right now, especially with our staff, the more rangers that we train to be able to do that, I think the less issues we'll have in the park system. The key is just not moving them from one place to the other. It's a pretty huge social issue. But at least we could educate them to, as well as our, existing staff. But I mean, it's going to be hard pressed to get like a gardener caretaker to go up and talk to a homeless person, to give them advice. But a park ranger, that could be part of their ongoing duties.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, any other questions or comments? Then, without objection, I move that we forward this to the full City Council for permanent appointment of Mike Schull as General Manager of Recreation and Parks without objection.
Congratulations.
So moved. All right, congratulations,
Thank you.
Mike. And it will be in council on September 10th, 2 days from now. That's on Wednesday. Congratulations. All right, I'd like to go to item 1 now and invite Eric Paquette, reappointment to Cultural Affairs Commission.
Item number 1, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Eric Paquette to the Cultural Affairs Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2019.
Thank you. Welcome, Eric. Welcome back.
Hi.
My question is, you've been now a commissioner for, has it been almost a year now?
Yeah,
About
10
a year.
months. Yeah.
10 months.
Yes.
What are some of your thoughts after 10 months of doing this?
Well, I've spent the past 8.5 months without a general manager, so I thank you all for approving Danielle Brazil, who started about 4 weeks ago. She's an incredible woman. I think she brings to that job a tremendous amount of ideas, and it's been a great honor to serve the city in this capacity as a commissioner and president of the Cultural Affairs. And, the primary job as a commissioner is to sit in board meetings and approve public art, and those things are very significant. But what motivates me is doing things that can directly impact the children of the city. And certainly public art does that, but I'm highly motivated, and I've spoken to Danielle about this as well as our mayor, to create programs that expose children from every part of our city to art and culture, and have the various departments of our city work together. The Cultural Affairs should be working with El Pueblo. We spoke about it, the general manager who's here, about hosting an event on the plaza there and bringing in the community so that people can be exposed to the great aspects of our city. People can learn about El Pueblo in a way that they hadn't been exposed to before. So I'm highly motivated to continue to look for things outside of board meetings to have an impact on our city.
Thank you. You answered the question I was going to ask. The main question in terms of area of focus, I gather that it's youth exposure
Yes.
to other forms of art.
Because I think that's not to borrow a line from a song, but children are our future. And if you can expose young children to arts and creativity, you will stand a great chance of having someone who has a creative mind, who is a creative thinker, who can really tap into those things that they may not even know they have. And that to me is very important. And Councilmember Price, we've talked about that in years past as well.
And it's you bring up a great point, because I don't know if you saw a report just came out last week that makes the connection between exposure to art and academic achievement. Yeah. And it's significant. It's in the several percentile improvement once a child has been exposed to art, how that affects their ability academically.
Yeah. Well, one of the, I'm also on the board of the Johns Hopkins School of Education, and what they have devised is a brain-targeted teaching method, where they literally take what their brain scientists tell them about the brain and how the brain works, and they infuse that into a curriculum. So it's not going to surprise you to know that if you bring in arts and music into English and history and math, kids are going to retain it more, and they're going to be more excited about learning, and so are the teachers. If you look in a public school, most public schools today, kids are taught the same way they were taught 45 years ago, and it clearly isn't working. So I'm trying to infuse a bit of my passion in creative teaching into the Department of Cultural Affairs, so that kids can, to your point in this report, be future creative thinkers of our society.
Terrific. Thanks, Mr. Paquette, and thanks for stepping up again and
Of course.
and your enthusiasm for this. We really appreciate it. Colleagues,
My pleasure.
Mr. Price, we'll start with you.
Eric, again, glad that you are stepping up and renewing your.
Thank you. My vows.
Appreciate it. You know, we talked about the importance of arts and culture, sort of getting their minds and enthusiasms revved up. How can we better utilize arts and culture as a tool for economic development? That's another component, I think, of our whole idea of cultural tourism and, you know, the rich cultural diversity that our city represents. How do we tap into that in a way that leverages that to, you know, providing some economic
I think it's
benefits at the local level?
That's a very good question. I would first say that the Park and Rec's new general manager, you can have a lot of movies shoot in all of your parks and charge them a lot of money. So there's one revenue. I'm happy to hook you up with those. I think it's a very good question, Councilmember Price, and developing public-private partnerships is the key. You see what just happened during Labor Day weekend with Made in America and Jay-Z and that whole tour. There are an enormous amount of people I know in the creative community that want to get involved with the city and create events that can not only help small businesses, but can attract people from around the country and around the world to want to come to LA. You know, most tourists that come here now, they go to Hollywood and Highland, they see the Hollywood sign, and you can't really define what else they do when they want to come to LA. It's important that we create, as a city, events. Not that you necessarily want to have a Coachella or Burning Man, but you can have something like that in this city that is an annual event that gets corporate sponsorship that brings in hundreds of thousands of people from outside of the city who need hotels to stay in, they need to eat, and they need to, buy T-shirts and whatever kind of merchandise you can have. So I think it's going to take, and I've talked to my friend John Vane, who's a commissioner on the Convention Bureau, and he is also part of creating cultural tourism. It's going to take working with all of you and the various motivated parties in each of the commissions to brainstorm. As you pointed out earlier, you got to think outside the box. If I'm not going to do this, if I'm just going to show up to board meetings and approve public art, that's not exciting to me. What's exciting to me is thinking outside the box and thinking of ways to help make this city the best city in the world. And it is, and it would. The byproduct of that is bringing in new businesses and increasing economic activity.
Thank you. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for agreeing to continue to serve on the commission. Look forward to working with you and Danielle and the entire family. We have found across the city that we have so many underutilized community theaters.
Yes.
Thankfully, we've been pushing to get the Warner Grand Theater moving, and the department put out a request for interest. And this is part of what Mr. Price is alluding to, is exactly what we're trying to accomplish in our historic downtown San Pedro district, where you bring in quality A-list performances. It's going to just contribute to our local economy.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we want to accomplish at the Watts Towers.
Yes.
Why isn't that the Grammys Foundation is, coming on and partnering with us to do performances in front of the Watts Towers?
Yeah.
How do you plan on bringing in these types of resources and opportunities? Just the two examples I've given you in my district, but the entire city.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, I have two children. I love exploring the city with them on any given weekend, and there's no real easy way to do that, right? So I'm starting with our website. The Cultural Affairs website right now is terrible because there's Watts Towers, there's Barnsdale, there are so many facilities that the city owns that are basically empty. So the first thing you do simultaneously while helping people, because you can't just make a really good movie, right? You have to let people know that it exists so that they can actually come and see it. So one of the things I talked to Danielle about was having a better website and programming it as if you're programming a film festival or an arts festival. And I will go to every single talent agency with Danielle and utilize all of my contacts of having been an executive for the past 20 years in the entertainment business and say, guys, you have all these artists. You have Gwen Stefani, people that grew up here, Katy Perry, that want LA to succeed, that want our mayor to succeed, and let's have them come and do concerts, do shows, do an a cappella night with Katy Perry, and have your family come out. And so this...
Next week at the Warner Grand.
There you go. But you bring up a great point, and like any great organization, it's going to take a CEO and many lieutenants to have the motivation to want to do that. And it's going to take working with each one of you to figure out ways to creatively help culturally improve your districts. And it's simply hard work. Getting to these people is easy. It's going to be just a bunch of people motivated to want to offer a better life to people in your district.
I like, move forward on this. I like your passion, and I like where you're coming from as a father, and knowing that you want to leave a legacy behind for your kids growing up in the city, and just that alone is priceless. And I ask for an aye vote.
A couple of things. Your thoughts on, and we did it once this year, and how we replicate that, how we proliferate that.
Yeah.
As part of the culture of Los Angeles. Here's a place where we have great weather, 300 plus, not more. And it gives us those opportunities, longer days, warmer nights, connecting film and economy. We had a great success bringing tax credits, but we've got to we want to see more kind of the studios and the industry investing in the communities, and that's one of the ways. You talked about some music entertainers, but specifically integrating, and particularly in a city that's this diverse, one of the challenges we continue presence and the opportunities. What I hear from the constituents I represent, they're opportunity that from artists, I get it from actors, I get it from musicians, dancers. They're not getting the opportunies for space, and even Valley said.
First of all, I love outdoor movies, so it's a really good idea. I think that simple. You find the park, and you then go to each of the major studios, and you have them pay for it. And we screen one of their movies, and it's not just a movie that's a fun movie. It's a movie that is significant for our time for some reason. So you have to really curate this so that it can become not just a pleasurable experience, but a learning experience. And I'm happy to, I'm an executive at Sony, and I know people at all of the studios, so I will take this on as my project in working with you, council member, so that once a month at some park in our city, there's a great outdoor screening. And as Sony Pictures is a big supporter of the Department of Cultural Affairs, sadly, many of the other studios are not. But this kind of a thing doesn't cost a lot of money and is a way to bring in, you call Roy Choi or you get a bunch of the food trucks to show up, and you make it an event. You do like what LACMA does every Saturday night, where they have a band play and they sell food, and there's like 3,000 people that show up. And they're there because they like to be part of this community. And they may not know the band or like the band, but they just want to, it's like Central Park in Manhattan in the summertime. People just go out there because they're New Yorkers and they love to feel like they're among other New Yorkers. But we don't necessarily have that in LA. But we can do that. And I think having a movie night once a month somewhere drive-in theater with a culturally significant film that we can get whatever one you want, I think is a great idea.
I need your cell number.
Seriously.
You'll be getting appointment requests from
No,
all
that's
of us.
fine. Let's do it. What's the point, right? Unless you
Exactly.
want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's
Well said.
everything here is low-hanging fruit. It really is. It just takes some motivation to want to go grab it.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Mr. Paquette. Thank you so much. And seeing as there are no public comment cards, then we will approve and forward to full council for consideration without objection.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, appreciate it.
Yes, here's mine.
In the immediate, here we go. I would like to now go to item 2, Mr. Lidd, and invite Alan Bernstein up.
Item number 2, communication from the Mayor and City Ethics Commission report relative to the appointment of Mr. Alan Bernstein to the Disabled Access Appeals Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2015.
Wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Bernstein.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And if you could just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience and how it will be applicable to serving on this commission.
Certainly. I'm Alan Bernstein. I reside in Hancock Park with my 3 children. My daughters are twins. They're 8 years old. One's at 3rd Street. One's at Community Magnet. My son's in 5th grade at Oakwood. When my daughters were born, we lived in West Hollywood, although I've worked in Los Angeles and mostly lived here since I moved here in 1993. My daughter had physical challenges at birth. We were very fortunate. We were able to deal with them all with early intervention and therapy, but the council there put me on the Disability Advisory Board at the time because they wanted a parent's perspective on disabled issues, issues for people facing disabilities, and so I served there as vice chair. And then was appointed from there onto their planning commission, where I served for a number of years and chaired that. So I have a background and an interest in issues affecting people living with disabilities. I also currently serve as vice chair of the Board of Retirement for Lucera, where we also regularly are reviewing cases for people asking for disability retirements and making decisions on those.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan. And can you describe some of your big picture ideas about improving access to the disabled community? Just in general, we clearly have some challenges in Los Angeles. If you could elaborate just a little bit on what you see should be some of our major objectives.
Certainly. I mean, fortunately for things moving forward, we have the ADA, we have a variety of state and federal legislation that mandates that we look for access for people living with disabilities. Those, by and large, are very good policies that we implement. The purpose of this commission, obviously, is to sometimes figure out how to keep the spirit of that going when there are technical challenges with the implementation, but the spirit is there. I think, as somebody who runs a property management company, it's always challenging when you're dealing with retrofitting issues because it's harder to mandate them. In some cases, it's physically just harder to build it. And at the same time, I think there are always opportunities to be looking for greater access for persons living with disabilities. Of course, one of the things we have to do is just make sure that people living with disabilities are visible in our community, because until everyone is visible, it's often easy to overlook what their needs are. So I think that that's a big part of the process, too.
Great point. Thank you. Colleagues?
Well, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to serve, again, with this issue. And I think part of the visibility is informing, as you said. Talk a little bit about, ways that you inform not only the disabled community, but the broader community about issues, problems, concerns. What do you see as some opportunities to communicate in ways that we haven't before?
That's a great question. I'm always aware of questions of privilege, and for the able-bodied community, so much of our privilege is just inherently, it's hard to even think about because it's just so automatic that when you go to an entryway and it's not available, but there are stairs, you just go up the stairs because it's easy for us to do it. I think it's just so important, as I said, to elevate the voices of people who face different challenges than the challenges that I face. It was just something I became very aware of when, as I said, my daughter was having these challenges. I mean, just something as simple as how one child can roll over easily and another can't, which obviously isn't a construction issue, but it made me very aware of the importance of looking for opportunities for people who are living with different challenges to have their voices heard and their needs represented.
Mr. Cedillo.
Thank you. I think you're doing a great job, and I think it's important for hybrid in a sense. Like me, much of my sensitivity for the disabled community comes to both sides. Like you say, we think it's obvious that we can just. Any other thoughts on access to public restrooms, sidewalks, curb cuts, etc.?
I'm a new appointee, so I'm looking forward to learning more about these issues. I have no doubt that there are challenges, and I sort of share the optimism of the two men who are up here before me, which is that sometimes once you realize the challenges, you also realize that the solutions are surprisingly simple to implement. So I look forward to delving into the issues and looking for ways that we can improve access. But as a first-timer, it's hard for me to know exactly where that will pop up.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And colleagues, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Alan Bernstein over the past 2+ years now, I would say. And just, I feel really great about this appointment. He brings a world of experience in his professional life and in his personal life, as you just heard, in terms of his commission work previously with the City of West Hollywood. So I think we're really fortunate to have someone of your aptitude, quite frankly, stepping up and serving on this commission and elevating the visibility of the overall issue that the disabled community faces. So thanks for stepping up, and I suggest that we approve and forward to full council for consideration without objection. Thank you.
Thank you all.
You are approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. And now we will go to item 3 and invite Ms. Josefa Salinas up to the table. Thank you. Mr. Lidd?
This is communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Ms. Josefa Salinas to the Board of Library Commissioners.
Similar question. You've been on the commission for a bit. What are some of your thoughts now? And what interests you with what makes you interested in continuing on this commission?
I've had the pleasure of serving for about 8 months now, and I was very excited to be asked to do it again. I was voted the president, and am very happy to be leading this group of very, very passionate commissioners. I think that in this coming year, we were all brand new. It's basically an entire brand new commission, except for Commissioner Walters, who has been there forever, and we're so glad that she is still there. I think you will see in the next year some big changes coming. We're a very passionate commission. We are definitely not your typical commissioners for this type of position. We think outside the box. We, too, know some of the low-hanging fruit around Los Angeles and look forward to making sure that our library system is one of the leading ones in the country. We're a little dismayed at our lack of people who have library cards, and each one of us on a daily basis is just astounded by the number of people that don't know what's going on at the library. So that's one of our biggest missions, is to open up everyone's eyes and let them realize that there's way more than books going on at the library. It's a way of life at the library, and it should be a bigger part of people's lives, and that's our goal, to make the library an everyday part of every Los Angelino's life.
Well said. I have often thought, not unlike some of our schools or our parks, I think libraries are also a form of a community center. And for example, I know in Atwater Village, I'm assisting the Historical Society, working directly with the library there on embellishing one of the rooms and making it sort of all about Atwater Village history. And that's more of a gathering spot for that purpose as well. So what are some of your thoughts in terms of other ways to attract people, not just to check out a book, because we're clearly in a new world in terms of media. What are some of your other ideas?
I think that the library could be utilized much like some of the other commissioners were talking about. Why can't an artist come in and do an acoustic performance in a library and have people come, an author with their new book for a book signing and a discussion? One of my biggest passions, and Mr. Szabo will tell you this is something I'm very passionate about, and that is the utilization of the iPads for filming every event that happens at the library. So if we have a fantastic speaker, we have 71 locations. If we have a fantastic speaker over here, film it, put it up on YouTube so that people from all over Los Angeles will have the ability to see that speaker that was at that library, to bring in speakers talking on various subjects. There are so many people that come through Los Angeles. Let the library be a place that can be utilized for them to show their talent, speak on a passion, show their art, their culture. The library is such an amazing place, and so many people don't know that it is a way of life, not just a book.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you. Thanks so much for your 8 months so far and for being willing to step up. I'm very encouraged by your work and what we're hearing. Thank you. Colleagues?
Again, just want to thank you for your commitment, not only on this board, but in the community. Those of us who listen to you and who know of your passion for community-based issues, and I'm happy to see you bringing that same kind of passion to the library. And to opportunities to, expand use of the library. And again, not just inside, but outside. At the Vermont Square Library, where I grew up, that I think celebrated its 100-year anniversary about a year or so ago. We're talking about doing some gardens, some community gardens on the grounds. So, any thoughts about not necessarily sponsorship, but how do we engage the community, business sector, nonprofit sector as partners with you and others in bringing the libraries to life?
Well, we have some really innovative ideas coming forward. We just have to make sure that we follow the proper channels to get some of these things going. I would love to see bookmobiles again. Why shouldn't there be a fleet of bookmobiles, and why shouldn't they be sponsored? Right. It does. I mean, I'm a mother, and being a parent and an avid reader, I probably have 3,000 books in my library at home because I'm such a passionate book reader. Why shouldn't those bookmobiles be going out to communities all over? There should be a fleet of them, and they could be sponsored because the city doesn't need to pay for it. Let someone else pay for it. I don't care if Nestle is on my bookmobile as long as the mobile comes and brings the books. Right. Why shouldn't there be a little computer center within that bookmobile where it's a mobile village that actually starts going all over Los Angeles to reach people who can't necessarily get into the library? Let it come to them. And then when we connect people with a mobile village, we're connecting them with the world. And Los Angeles now becomes a member of the World Village, and that's our goal.
Wow, well put.
Go get them.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I can, thank you. I'm just excited by just the crop of individuals the mayor's appointed, but especially in this committee that have come before us. Your excitement, your enthusiasm, and commitment to service is commendable. And Josefa, we go way back with our LAPD days and hope in bringing Latina LAPD cadets to the Leadership Institute and the work that you've done in the community. And you're still on Hot 92.3. How can we leverage that opportunity of sharing the great news within our public library system to your audience on the radio?
Well, we already have utilized it, and I, from the beginning, I mean, everyone who knows me, even at my job at Clear Channel, knows that I don't drink the Clear Channel Kool-Aid. I am very familiar with CBS and MS and all of them, and anything that I have from the library, I take to all of my colleagues. I'm pretty well known amongst my colleagues in the broadcast industry, so we've run PSAs on other radio stations, as well as the cluster. The Clear Channel cluster itself reaches over 10 million people, so we're with the online high school that is now with the library. We started running those PSAs, and I'm trying to help the library understand how to better utilize that partnership with the media and get the media to come on board and how to present that properly to get them to come on board. There's a way to do it, to get them to understand, number one, their job and their obligation to serve the community, but to make it easy for them and send it to them prepackaged and show them why. Look at how easy this would be to just put your name on this and help us. And then, of course, they just say yes, and it becomes a win-win for both sides, because a lot of times it can be done for free, and that's my expertise.
Happy to hear you're leading the commission as its president, and thank you for your service. And it was good to see you when we first launched our Sunday hours, right, John, at the San Pedro branch, and you were there, visible and vocal and in support of our public library system. Thank you. God bless you for your service. Thank you.
Mr. Cedillo.
Love your bookmobile. I was in Bryant Park, and I saw they had a library there, just out in the park. You just go get a book and then go read it and take it or leave it. Great stuff. My question is, how do we all agree on the great ideas and the great things that we can do? But our library system, as great as it is still kind of a secret in many instances. And so
Yes, it
we
is.
need to make sure that it's less of a secret. How do we make it less of a secret?
That's one of my biggest concerns / complaints / hopes, is that for a long time, the library has been serving the people who know about it. And there were so many things I didn't know before coming on the commission. I was shocked at all of the things happening at the library, and I kind of know what's going on around town, and even I didn't know. So it is my personal passion to help in this next 4 years, to help them understand how to better market themselves to the people, because you have to get the word out. And there are ways, there are different ways that we can go about doing that. But by doing some of these out-of-the-box things, like having an Eric LaSalle come and do a book signing at the library with his new book, or a new television show. Let them, some of the actors come and do a Q&A. Some of our libraries have screenwriting programs. So why not have directors or producers coming down? And when you do that, then you marry that with a media campaign that doesn't necessarily cost money. You just have to know how to do it. And so even though I don't necessarily work for the library in that capacity, because I have the expertise in that area, I'm constantly trying to set up to show them how to better do that, because I am that other side, and so I know how to reach them. And that is my big, I want to take us from 30% to 70% of Los Angeles people having cards. I want to lead the nation and be the city that has the most citizens with library cards. And there's lots of ways to do that. Everybody just has to be willing to think outside the box.
I know you're going to endorse it, but just let me thank you and the librarians and the full staff. I'm a product of the Los Angeles City Library, Robert Louis Stevenson. My parents would drop me off there, and there was a librarian waiting for me with a stack of books, and I'd find a corner, nice and cool, and go sit there and live in another world. And so I want to thank you and all the librarians and their staff for doing that.
Thank you. I think there's a big misconception that people aren't reading books, and in fact, it's quite the opposite. Books are on the rise again. People are buying books. People love books. Kids love books. And we're going to make sure they know where to come get them.
Well done. Sure.
A suggestion, maybe your commission could look at it. I believe and maybe this is already happening, John, if you can correct me. Every LA Unified School District student should have a library card. That's not the case.
Not happening with love.
All right, so Joseph, tomorrow let's drop that motion in council, and let's look at that.
That was one of the things that we had brought up, is there needs to be a better relationship between LAUSD and the library. The fact that there wasn't was astonishing, and that was one of the things we hope to work on in this next session, is getting that relationship. It should be like, you should come to school, and that should go home in your parent pack. Here's your library. Here's everything that's involved at the library, and here's your card. Here's how you turn it back in. Those get sent back to the library. The kids get their cards.
And our zoo director's looking at us, John. We'll do that with the LA Zoo as well.
Yes, but that is on our list. Trust me, it's on our list.
Great.
This is on your list. This is a great thought about this collaboration between the city and LAUSD, and the importance of the children and the kids. But one thing that's very dynamic in the city and this state and nation is the question of immigration. And under the leadership of our mayor, we've rejuvenated the Office of Immigrant Affairs, and we are committed to using the infrastructure of the library. So talk to us about using the infrastructure of the library for citizenship information. We're going to need to make people civically aware and engaged around the driver's license in a few months. Talk to me about what you see the role of the library within that framework.
Well, I know that many of our libraries, I'm not sure how many, but quite a few of them, right? All of them have is it a separate room, separate all? Yeah, separate space that is set aside to deal specifically with citizenship, immigration. I know we have ESL classes, and all of those things are available. And it's going to be even more important to be able to reach out to Univision and all of the other, to let people know that the library is a safe place to go, to get this information, to have people there who are well-versed in it. We were very active in the healthcare sign-up, making sure that we had, at our locations, people could come there and sign up. So people are starting to realize that the library is more than that. So we know that we need to play an important role. The library needs to be a part of the community. Mm-hmm. People need to feel that the library is their community place. Mm-hmm. It's their community center, and community is beyond the book. It is, how do I live? How do I eat? How do I get services? Can I come here to find out about a job? I'm a vet. How do I get services? I need tutoring. How do I find it? I'm interested in art. I'm interested in science. I'm interested in robotics. All of that is available at the library. Yes. But it's very, very important with our diverse communities that we provide the immigration and the citizenship services, and we're working very, very hard to make sure all of our locations have that and expand them as needed to include any new information that is coming up that people are going to need to be aware of. We will make sure that our people are aware and are providing that information to our citizens.
Thank you. It has been a wonderful discussion here, and as it was taking place, I was reflecting also on schools. I'm a product of the public school system, and I practically lived at the library because both of my parents worked after school. That's where I was from, I think, about fourth grade on. And so I think that is an incredible opportunity. And I remember my school, public school, was linked directly with the public library nearby. So I want to second that motion or co-sign, whatever it is, because we definitely need to lead on that issue. It's a lost opportunity.
It is.
And we should really get that going because, gosh, so many kids are at that, latchkey age, at-risk age. It really kept my brother and sisters and I out of trouble. And as Gil said, we entered a whole new world at the library every afternoon. So good stuff. And thanks, Ms. Salinas, for your work so far. I think we're going to move you forward without objection for reconfirmation.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's the 11th Street?
Westchester, LA. I would now like to go to item 5 and invite Mr. David Louie up, appointment to the El Pueblo de Los Angeles.
Communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. David Louie to El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument Authority for the term ending June 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Louie. I had such a great pleasure sitting with you a couple of weeks ago and hearing all of your ideas, and I think you're such a critical link. You're a veteran of the commission, and you are working with a lot of newcomers, providing really great institutional guidance for this new focus at El Pueblo with the various plans that are on the table and the visioning that's going on and moving El Pueblo forward. So I would love for you to share with everyone some of your thoughts on where it's been and where it's headed.
Okay. Thank you very much for having an opportunity to sit with y'all. By way of introduction, fourth-generation Chinese-American, born right here in Los Angeles, attended 39th Street School, which is now called Tom Bradley Grammar School, Audubon Junior High School, Dorsey High School, and Cal State LA. Technical background, CPA with a firm, maybe some of you remember Arthur Anderson, and have spent the last 30 years with CBRE, Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. At various times, we've assisted with the Department of Commerce on a federal level. We were a police officer with the city of Richmond for 5 years. I've owned my own small business in the past and me and the lovely wife and the 4 wonderful children reside in Silver Lake. I've had the distinct opportunity. 7 years ago, Antonio came to me and said, would you serve on the El Pueblo Commission? And I declined. I did a little bit of research, but it was a very challenging opportunity that he had presented. We talked some more. They came back and revisited, and we took on the opportunity. And it's proven to be very, very exciting. El Pueblo is a crown jewel for the city of Los Angeles. It needs a little polishing at that time. And after significant work, we were able to increase rents. You may have heard about that. Rents had not been increased for a period of 25 years. And there were some lawsuits that were outstanding that were be able to be resolved. And there were a couple opportunities. The Siqueiros Museum needed to be pushed forward. It had been a decade in the coming, and that has opened up. And the Chinese American Museum had been sort of in limbo for many years, looking for an extension of its time. So those items have been achieved. At the time, 7 years ago, we were out of balance on our budget. We had a staff of 23 folks. Today, we are in balance. We have a staff. We actually have more commissioners than we have employees right now.
Okay.
I think we have 9 commissioners, I believe. I may be exaggerating. I think 9 or 10 employees. It's a wonderful spot. It's 40 acres of land. We have about 150,000 square feet of improvements. It's located immediately west of Union Station, the transportation hub of Southern California. It is the northern neighbor of Civic Center. To the north is Chinatown, and to the west is Fort Moore. The county owns adjacent property. They are in the process of doing a huge development, 800-car parking, 500,000 square feet of mixed-use development, and the establishment of a sail leading from Fort Moore down to El Pueblo and then across to Union Station. So it's a very exciting time. And I think from the city's perspective, I think right now we can take a look at El Pueblo and sort of master plan how it fits in with the county development and its 3 neighbors, Chinatown, Civic Center, and Union Station. MTA has allocated a significant amount of money for connector studies. They recognize the importance of bringing these pieces together. The southern half of El Pueblo actually is sort of quiet, but through the leadership of our general manager, Chris Espinoza, we're looking at moving the city's technology group down in to occupy the Merced Theater and the Masonic Hall. And that brings significant capital dollars to the table. We have some, I want to say, untouched treasures, but I think many folks are aware. Alvera Street, the Avila Adobe, the Pico House, the Siqueiros Museum, the Chinese American Museum, Italian Hall. Yeah, the celebrations that we've had there. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You've been.
Ceremonies this year. Okay.
Ms. Gatto has done a fabulous job over there. So 4 or 5 years ago, it was in trouble. But sort of by the bootstraps and a lot of sweat and energy and your leadership, I think it's headed in the right direction. So those are the opportunities. We have challenges. The staffing, I mean, we're doing now what 23 people were doing with 9 or 10 folks. We do have our own homeless population. And on a mini scope, it represents all the same challenges that the city as a whole has taken on. Jose, in combination with Gloria, have put together a task force, and that task force has actually been operating at El Pueblo for the last year and a half. And population, they surveyed to get an idea. We had as many as 600 homeless. And it's not easy work. I think the last count, we had 34 folks that we've been able to relocate and put into interim or permanent housing. But as you're well aware, many folks have some mental illness challenges, alcohol, drug. Some of them really just want to be independent, and they're not interested in going into any type of housing. They like being outside. And El Pueblo is sort of in a unique position in that if you're going to be homeless, El Pueblo is a good place to be. The security there is, we have our own private security. The county has their own private security. The sheriff department patrols, LAPD patrols. And so it's safe. It's bilingual. We have a number of feeding programs. We, not the city, other entities within
the
Pueblo have feeding programs. They bring in great food. In fact, many of the folks who participate in the feeding program are not homeless. They're not our homeless population. They're just simply families that, hey, this is a neat deal. We can come down and eat for free.
So, Mr. Liu, let's get to some questions. And I would like
sir.
to ask you, in terms of, remind me again what the lot is that the city owns that's across from the incoming Italian-American Museum. What lot is that? It's Lot 2, right? Lot 2, thank you.
It's city property, yeah.
That's city property. So I've spoken with our colleague, Jose Huizar, about Lot 2. It's such a prime opportunity.
That's really a parking lot?
It's currently a surface parking lot, and it's such a prime opportunity. I know that we would all, well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but there's a great interest in seeing that move forward with an RFP for a mixed-use development with affordable and permanent supportive housing for the homeless. So are we to the point on the commission where that's being discussed? I would also, refer to our general manager, but that is a prime piece of real estate at a prime location at a time when everyone seems to want to live downtown. So revenue, generating income, adding vibrancy, and replacing a surface parking lot in an area that's so culturally significant.
Yeah, I think, and my general manager is here, so he can speak specifically for the city, but from a commissioner's standpoint, I think it's a can't-miss location. From a real estate standpoint, it's centrally located. It's big enough that you can have a good-sized development occur there. And then moreover, the county, when they went out for RFP on the county lot, was able to get big-time developers to take a very careful look at it. I think Trammell Crow is a selected developer over there on the county property. So I think the time is correct that the city ought to look at it, and it would not surprise me if some of the developers who are not successful on the county proposal simply made an unsolicited proposal to the city. And I suspect that if an unsolicited proposal came in, Chris would take a look at it. Yeah, Chris would take a look at it, and he'd probably kick it up and say, hey, we need to either respond.
Terrific. Well, we'll follow through on the proper channels on next steps on that because it is an opportunity. And I'd like to open the floor to my colleagues.
I just want to thank you again for your service. You bring some institutional knowledge to this body, apparently.
So you're just calling me old, huh?
But again, I think just kind of underscores, like you say, one of the jewels of the city, one of the cultural resources that we need to better, I don't want to say exploit, but certainly better leverage to the benefit of the whole city. And just appreciate your ideas and your thoughts on how to do that. I know you've got some specific thoughts about some developments that have occurred that are being planned. Give us some blue sky. What could we be doing that we're not thinking about now, or where should we be looking at?
Well, I think the county, they brought in some master planners as they put together the RFP. And I think those planners sort of looked at it from a sustainable private sector approach and said, hey, we can support housing, we can support mixed-use housing, and we can support retail. Their conclusion was about 500,000 square feet of housing and another 55,000 square feet of retail. 800 car parking, a lot of parking. And they're proposing 7, 8, 9 stories against the Fort Moore wall over there. So I think from a private sector developer standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. I think from generating revenue for the county, probably makes a lot of sense. From a master planning standpoint, there may be I would have some hesitation on the massive development that's going to go there. So on lot number 2, we're sort of in the middle. The city property is in the middle of that. And so I think something that was complementary both to Chinatown, recognizing the cultural and historic significance of El Pueblo, major development could occur there. I don't think it would be as massive as the county property. And you all may not be aware of it, but some of the leases that we have are frozen. I think there's 17, 18 leases that are frozen from 2000. Rent increases cannot occur until the city moves forward with the development of a parking structure on lot number 2. It's very interesting. I think when that condition was placed in there was a thought, hey, the city's never going to do this. Well, it may be time.
We better get cracking on it. Thank you. Mr. Buscaino? No? Mr. Cedillo?
David, I'm so happy to see you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to
Obviously,
see you, Gil, too.
the presence of the API community and this is why the museum is appropriately there. Let's talk about the future and how we do this, because it's a gem. It does need polishing, needs a little more vibrancy, and needs a lot more. I mean, the frustration that I have as an Angelino is I know our incredible cultural assets. I'm just get amazed that they continue to be underutilized. Under accommodations for cyclists, for buses. Are we maximizing that in terms of creating opportunities for people who want to cycle there? Do we have the routes? One, how do we capture? I mean, you've got the hub there at the train station. How do we capture that? Are we doing a better job to capture that? And then third, you look to the successes to certain areas. Pasadena, it was Street Promenade, it was the parking that they built in there. Places where people gather that have been successful have always accommodated. Pueblo seems to have developed organically without, is that the 800 is enough, or does Lot 2 present an opportunity?
800 parking stalls are for the county
I got
project. Okay. Our parking, I think the success that comes with parking is that it's accessible, visible, and free. And I don't think we have that at El Pueblo. In fact, I know we don't.
Yeah.
Our parking makes up more than half of our annual budget from an income standpoint. But I think if we took a master plan look at the entire site and figured out a way to make our parking visible, accessible, and reasonably priced, very reasonably priced, I think we could have a winner there. And you've got Union Station right across the street, and you have public transportation coming in. So it ought to be a better connector, and I think the MTA is looking at that. They've allocated, $3 million for their connector study. Much of that money some of that money is going to come to actual physical improvements. So they're working on it. They and supervisor's office are really looking at connecting Union Station up to Fort Moore. Fort Moore is where that dry waterfall is. And they're going to have a paseo coming down. And I mean, when you walk out of Union Station, you're going to have a clear shot all the way up to the waterfall. So I think Union Station, the connection, our access is not as good as it should be. Given all that we have, we still get 2 million visitors a year, 600,000 of which are students coming in on buses. So there's a huge population that knows about it. But unfortunately, my perception is they come once, that's it.
People looking at a pedestrian bridge out of the train
Either
station?
at this point, we've been sitting with the MTA folks, and neither option has been explored. They're looking at closing off Los Angeles Street. Los Angeles Street is that little curved street, and there's an on-ramp for the freeway. Closing that, they're looking at it, closing it off and making a bigger gateway from Union Station. Yeah, coming across right up the hill through Father Sarah Park. So there have been a number of attempts, not for lack of trying. And Tom has led the charge a couple times trying to get bike bike activation hasn't quite caught on yet, hasn't had the traction to make it happen. Those are areas that we need to do, need to work on.
Pedestrians get bottlenecked, they got to cross Alameda, it's packed,
Absolutely, and if you look at the connection, or how Caesar Shop is, there's almost a wall preventing folks from going over into Chinatown. Discussion, some would say pie in the sky discussion, but discussion nonetheless about capping part of the freeway and making a better connection.
people don't think it's
That's, that's not pie in the sky at all.
No.
We can do it.
No, it'd be fabulous, to make that direct connection. I mean,
Yeah.
the federal buildings right across the street, they got 100,000 square foot floor plates.
Yeah.
Hundreds of employees.
El Pueblo is very interesting. It's so close by Civic Center, City Hall, Union Station, Chinatown, but there are physical and visual barriers that psychologically really present the challenge. So I'm very eager in supporting the master plan, because if we break those down in all three situations, I think it just opens it up and makes it so much more accessible.
Could you guys just take a moment and revision for the El Pueblo asset?
I tell you what, since the time is advancing so rapidly, here we have more agenda items, but let's continue the conversation. I just made a note here. I'm going to be coming to the commission, visiting all the commissions myself, so we will continue this conversation, though, absolutely. But right now, we just want to get you, renewed.
Excellent. Thank you.
So without objection, we will reappoint Mr. Louis to the El Pueblo Commission and advance you to the full city council. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Louis. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go to item 6 and invite Karen Winnick up for her reappointment to the Board of Zoo Commissioners.
Communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Ms. Karen Winnick to the Board of Zoo Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2019.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Winnick.
Thank you so much.
And please give us a sense of where you are and where you've been with this commission and where you would like to take it.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm really the old-timer. I've been on the commission 15 years. I feel I'm a bit of a protege of Betty White, who
is alive and well, by the way.
yes, and absolutely wonderful, and such an advocate of animals, and I feel that that's what I am, and that's why I, in a way, feel I'm her protege. It's been a wonderful experience serving. I was appointed by Mayor Reardon, reappointed by Mayor Hahn, reappointed via Ragosa, and I'm very, very grateful to be reappointed again. And I have to say, with all the cutbacks and everything, it's been a real struggle. And our zoo director, John Lewis, who's here, has done an amazing job. He's the second director that I've served under, but I'm really in awe of how he is able to pull things through, because there's just been continuous cutbacks. And people have talked today about public-private partnerships, but I feel very strongly that that's one way to solve some of these problems, to get more donor support. I think the LA Zoo is just an amazing place for our city, and so many people tell me that they haven't been there in years, and we see signs for the San Diego Zoo all over the place in our city. And it's 2.5 times the price to go to the San Diego Zoo in a long trip. And I've also actually been involved with the Santa Barbara Zoo to some extent. I write and illustrate children's books, and sometimes best to, in that case, raise money to help the animals. And I feel like zoos in general, sometimes they get a bad rap, but they're not what they were 30 years ago. And being on the Zoo Commission has enriched my life so much. I've learned so much about animals. I'm on an international conservation board, and I've been involved with African wildlife and a few others. And in the wild, animals are getting poached. You all know about the elephants, but in India, the Asian elephants are getting run over by trains, human encroachment on all the habitat, and zoos have become the modern arks. And for my part, and as I said, I write children's books, and they've been about animals. I want children to be aware because I've always believed we were going to pass on a better world to our children, and I'm sad to say that I worry so much about that. I want them to be educated about animals, learn about them, come to love them and appreciate them because they're amazing. And old scientific theory was completely wrong, that they're just instinct and nothing more. Anybody who lives with animals knows that they have emotions and feelings and we can learn from them. I had a blind dog, and watching the way she dealt with her life. And so I want children, we were talking about children with culture, but I want children to appreciate animals. And here children can come, they can't necessarily get to Africa or India or other places and see the animals up close and learn about them. So I wish we had more funds for education, for outreach, for all these things. Just getting school children there, a school bus is something like $500 for the day. And I know we can possibly get support from the community and things, but also what about the companies that are here, and especially the entertainment companies? And one thing I want to bring up, too, because it's been stalled so much, is the idea of putting some signage in the zoo, just as another source of raising funds.
The partnerships that we were talking about with the other appointments at Rec and Parks, yeah.
But again, zoos are underappreciated. People don't understand. They think, oh, animals are behind bars. But more change takes a long time, and more zoos have put in natural habitats. All of these animals are so well cared for and loved, and I want people to be aware, to worry about what's going on in the wild, and it starts at the zoo. I know for me it started at the zoo.
Well, thank you, Ms. Winnick, for your years of volunteerism on this board, and also for just bringing up the very real threat and kind of depressing risk that we still face. I'm kind of with you. I kind of thought when I was very young that we would leave the world a better place, but I think that we have to face reality, but never give up at the same time.
I think for me, it's small steps. And at the zoo, because of budget cuts, we sometimes have to take small steps to make things better. But it's a microcosm of what's going on in the world. Small steps that are good steps.
But I will say I'm encouraged by the work of the Commission and the work of GLAZA, the work of the zoo on species preservation across the world. I've been very deeply educated the last 14 months being in office about all of that great work. And that has really helped my thinking about the LA Zoo evolve. So I appreciate all of that hard work, handling these very, very serious issues.
That evolution has been going on with zoos, and I wish the public would know more and more about it, because truly they are saving species.
Well, we're working on helping get the marketing contract in place so that more and more people can do just that. And I'm encouraged that I heard, it's been a couple of months ago, but I heard a Spanish language spot on the radio about the LA Zoo. It was very, I loved it. It said, come to the zoo. I mean, it was just like, it was just terrific. So just check it out. I listen to Spanish radio a lot.
Okay.
It was encouraging. So we'll get there. We're committed to that. So thank you. And
Thank you.
colleagues, any? Yeah,
Approve. Move to approve.
Yeah, say move it.
Mr. Price. Okay,
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
we're moving you forward. We'll give you another
Okay.
15.
All right. Well, I hope I'm here in another 15.
You will be. Thank you so much, Ms. Winnick.
Thank
Clearly.
you for the support.
Thank you. And sing us, yes. Yeah, okay. And so now we are, let me just bear with me a second. Okay. This time we're taking items 7 and 8, Recreation and Parks Report and Resolution regarding Hollywood Bowl Major Renovation Project and Hollywood Box Office Plaza Renovation Project. I'm going to recommend that we take that on consent if there are no objections. So items 7 and 8 on consent.
Congratulations.
And yes, we're handling a lot today. Thanks thanks everyone in the chamber for bearing with us. We will go to item 9 now and invite Department of Recreation and Parks regarding the Wilmington Greenbelt Community Center.
Item number 9, Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners report relative to the potential acquisition of real property for expansion, remediation, and development in connection with the East Wilmington Greenbelt Community Center.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Sid Makarag from the Planning and Construction and Maintenance Branch from Recreation and Parks. What you have before you is a request for your concurrence on a board action that our board took back in August 14. It is for the acquisition of the East Wilmington property. It's about a little under a 2-acre piece of property located at 845 North Sanford. And the whole purpose for this is for the expansion of our current existing East Wilmington Community Center, which is across the street from this property. There's a long history for this property. Since 2006, we have been trying to acquire this property. It is a property that's currently vacant and owned by Union Pacific. It was a former railroad yard, and if you can imagine the Wilmington area, there are potential problems in that. So back in 2006, we started negotiating with Union Pacific. There were some difficulties with it, but finally in 2008, we were able to come to an agreement. But part of that agreement with Union Pacific required that we had the funds to complete both the acquisition of the site, the development, and the cleanup of the site. And I can go into some of the problems with the site a little later. And so we signed that agreement, but we entered into an escrow period to allow us to give us time to make sure we had that. And unfortunately, back in 2009, we realized we did not have all the funds needed for the cleanup of the site. And so therefore, in October 2009, our board had to cancel the escrow with Union Pacific. Since then, in early 2012, Councilmember Busquiano had submitted a motion for our department to reconsider the acquisition of the site, and we have done that, and our board has gone forward with a recommendation to give us preliminary authorization to acquire this same site. What we're also asking and the board is requesting is that the council consider also and concur with this action. This is sort of unusual because under the city charter, the department has the authority to acquire property with funds under its control. And this is the case here. However, we feel because of some of the problems with this site that there could be a potential for liability to the city's general fund. And since we don't have control over that, we are asking that the city council concur with the action that our board is taking. So let me give you a little bit of short background about some of the problems that we have with the site. Originally, Union Pacific had offered the site to the city for $1.2 million. When we started doing our due diligence, we discovered that there was significant soil and groundwater contamination. Some of it was off-site, some of it may have been because of Union Pacific's use. We don't know for sure, but we do know that it's there. When we brought this to their attention, they decided, okay, in consideration of the cleanup cost, they will give it to us for a nominal fee of $100. So
It's a fire sale.
yes. So part of the problem is we've done extensive studies, soil studies, and groundwater studies. As a matter of fact, we also had informal discussions with the Department of Toxic Substances and Control. So we know what's on the ground, we know what's in the water, and we do have a preliminary and informal plan about how to clean it up. However, one of the stipulations that Union Pacific gave to the city was that you can take it, you have to accept it as is. However, you also need to protect us from all liability on the site. So it's on your dime if you want to take this property. From a department standpoint, we know that it's a sorely needed facility in that area. We have a facility just across the street from this property, the East Wilmington Community Center, that has been operating since 2006 with no significant problems whatsoever. And so we feel strongly that there is some risk. It's a measured risk based on what we know that we can do to the site. There is significant funding available from this site from various sources. We fixed the problem before because one of our problems was we did not have enough money to do all the cleanup necessary. That problem has been fixed now. And so in total, we have about $6.9 million to complete the design and the cleanup of this site from various sources. So something to consider.
That includes grant dollars from the state, right?
That's correct. There's about $3 million in Prop 40 state grants. The balance of the money available is coming from city coffers.
And there's a time sensitivity on Prop 40.
That is correct,
Is
yes.
it June of 2015?
That
if I'm not
is-
mistaken?
Yes, it is.
So there's a
2015.
time-sensitive issue to heavily consider this and move. Yeah.
That is correct. Just also for your information, we are in the process of also asking for an extension of that grant. I'm sure if the council will support this acquisition, they may be more inclined to give us that extension if that may be the
Because
case.
we've received extensions previously, correct? How many?
Right.
I believe
Two.
2.
So if the state feels that we're moving forward in a concrete way, if you will,
Right.
hate to use that metaphor with the river here, but that they're likely to give an extension.
We hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. And
Yeah.
also, we are also looking at option one being the recommended option because it gives a carve-out of the pipeline,
Right.
where the
That-
pipelines are, that Union Pacific
That
remains
is correct.
control of that property.
Yes, the whole
And it
idea.
lessens our risk.
That's correct. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Terrific. And good to see you again, Sid.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn the floor
Yes.
to Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and want to thank the entire city family for moving forward on this. This is dating back to the Janice Hahn days in her office here, and also a way to be responsive to the Wilmington community, which has been known to be park poor,
Yes.
because it's this close proximity to the industrial area of the port. Thank you, Mike Scholl. Thank you, our city attorney, Mike Fewer, for looking into this and bringing UP to the table and looking at ways to de-risk this project by carving out, as Mr. Chair alluded to, the active pipelines on the property. It's about time. It truly is. Mr. Scholl and I proposed this to the Wilmington community just within months of my election, and they're demanding something to be done there. And finally, we're moving forward. And I know, colleagues, you're looking at this item before you, which has a hefty price tag, but just know the dollars have been identified, and we don't want to lose them. Wilmington's known for there's a number of brown sites across the city. This is one of them, and this is a good way to turn this brown site into a green site, an open space for the community that's so deserving. Thank you.
Terrific. Comments or questions, colleagues? Well, let's move it. Moving forward with a Mike Scholl Greenbelt in Wilmington. Just kidding.
Oh, hey.
The,
Go along the street.
So, seeing as there are no public comments, then I'm going to read for the record, approve Recreation and Parks recommendation with an instruction for Recreation and Parks to report to council with the finalized purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of the property upon completion of the negotiations that are taking place. Right?
Okay.
Thank you. Terrific. Without objection,
Thank you.
we move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We will now go to item 10, and I see some of my favorite people in the city sitting here patiently throughout this long meeting, so thank you so much. Our Riverly sister, Dr. Carol Armstrong, is here to report, and Mr. Litt, if you would read the item for the record.
Item number 10, Bureau of Engineering report relative to the status of various projects connected with Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan.
Good afternoon, Councilman O'Farrell, council members of the committee. I'm Carol Armstrong with the Bureau of Engineering, LA River Office, and I'm here with
Mike Affel, also of Bureau of Engineering, LA River Office.
Terrific. So thank you. We've been on a hiatus of reporting, but not a hiatus of activity at the river. It's been a very lively summer. So thank you for coming to report on giving us some of the updates that have taken place.
Thank you. So there's a lot, as you said, there's a lot to report, and I'm going to focus on projects and the action on projects. First of all, the Albion Dairy Park in Council District 1 is going to be having its public meeting on September 23rd in the evening at Downey Rec Center. Also, the Caballero Creek Confluence Project in Council District 3 won a grant of over $1 million from the state, and that was by the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, or the MRCA. The Headwaters Greenway was opened by the county on July 12th. The Lacrette's Crossing of the LA River Revitalization Corporation also won a state grant of about $3.7 million, and I wanted to acknowledge my river sister, Maria Camacho from the RRC is here, as well as board member Cynthia Hirschhorn. The LA River Improvement Overlay District was approved by the council on July 2nd. Thank you so much. That's huge. We've been waiting for that since 2007. The next step is to develop design guidelines for that. I also want to congratulate the MRCA on the LA River Recreation Zone, which closed this past Labor Day. I also want to congratulate the MRCA in Council District 13 on the opening of the Marsh Parsh expansion on August 16th, I believe. And I wanted to acknowledge that NBC Universal has partnered with the county, and they have finished the feasibility report for the bike path from Whitsett to Riverside, which is huge, and huge scope, and they brought together a really nice coalition for that. Now we need to build it. I also want to congratulate the Gila Riverfront Collaborative, who has completed their vision plan, and that's now available online at LA River, or at mylariver.org. And I want to acknowledge the county, our river brothers and sisters over there, who opened the North Valley Heart Greenway from Fulton to Coldwater on the North Bank on June 21st. And what's not in this report, which I wanted to add, is our colleagues at the Bureau of Engineering have opened the final phase of the West Valley Bike Path on the south bank of the river from Mason to Van Alden, and they did that on August 28th. Of course, the Taylor Yard G2 site acquisition is a really important priority for river revitalization, and the MND public review closed for that on September 2nd. And the Sepulveda Basin Boating Program that was run by the LA Conservation Corps also closed on Labor Day. I would also like to acknowledge our colleagues at the City of Glendale. Their Riverwalk Phase 2 and 3 project is moving forward with a public meeting on September 11th. And Phase 3 will involve a bridge across the river going from the City of Glendale to the City of LA. So we want everybody to chime in on what they think of that and where it should go. I also wanted to acknowledge that the Metro Rail to River project, it's the Intermediate Active Transportation Corridor, is now available for comments until September 19th. And I also wanted to say, lastly, that it's been very exciting to sit here and listen today to all the folks that are being appointed to by you today, and I'm very encouraged by your committee and the things that you do. And I'd like to recommend, what if we had mobile river branches of the libraries that were artistic and brought books to the river and were also Wi-Fi hotspots and parked in river-adjacent parks? Go Team River.
Right.
So
Exactly. I love the idea, and I love when we had River Day, we had the Rivermobile, right, sponsored by FOLAR, and so I was thinking of the same thing, quite frankly, with you all sitting back there. So there is such an opportunity, so many synergistic things happening today with the river. And I just want to say, it's pretty incredible that we have four river bridges, either completely funded or almost fully funded, that are coming. That's what happens when, years of the planning, years of cobbling together resources, sometimes it just happens. And we got the grant for the Mort Lacrette's. We plugged that hole, and we were kind of wringing our hands on how we're going to do it, and then we get the grant. So we've got that. We've got the Glendale connector across the wash that gets us to North Atwater Village. And I've walked with the city of Glendale on that, so I'm very encouraged by that. And then we have the footpath going against the red car uprights just south of the Hyperion Bridge. And then the Doris Place multimodal bridge connecting the state park with Elysian Valley. So, and these are going to get built, all of them, within 5 years. The river's going to be a very different place. But it goes to show it doesn't happen overnight, but sometimes they all happen at once. Yeah. So we have a plethora of good news. But we also have, and we have the framework of Alternative 20 starting to come into focus, which leads into my question, if you're done, Dr. Armstrong.
I am done.
Okay, because there's just so much. In terms of the framework, remind us all again, because it's so nuanced and it's not uncomplicated in terms of Alternative 20 and what it means. If you could just take us give us the fifth grade sort of, here's how it works, the steps that it will take through the appropriations process, through the report that has to be adopted, et cetera. We have all the support, and we're going to have the support from the Obama administration. It's all great news, but explain the big picture steps and sort of a timeline, if you will.
Okay, I can definitely do that. So the LA River Ecosystem Restoration Feasibility Study, also known as the ARBOR study, is a partnership between the City of Los Angeles and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It was started in 2006. And over the years, it has zeroed in on a specific stretch of the river, the 11-mile Glendale Narrows stretch. Why? Because of the existing habitat in that area, in the soft bottom area of the river, because of key large open spaces next to the river that can be connected to that area, and two key confluences. And so over the years, the city has developed different alternatives in partnership with the Corps and from lots of input from the community. And everybody remembers last fall, the big push for Alternative 20. And the Army Corps had recommended Alternative 13. And after the public review and after the push by Mayor Garcetti and after the council resolution and everyone coming together, Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Joe Ellen Darcy, decided to go with Alternative 20 as the preferred plan. Alternative 20 is bigger than Alternative 13. It adds restoration at the Verdugo Wash. It also adds restoration connecting the LA State Historic Park or cornfields to the river. It also adds a significant stretch of soft bottom stretch in the river downtown, connecting the large piggy backyard site to the river. So it has a much larger price tag, but we're looking at sharing that approximately 50-50. That still needs to be worked out. The phase that's happening now is a gross appraisal, where we have to actually look at the cost of lands to get a finer grained idea of what that's going to cost. And as local sponsor, the city is going to be the one that acquires and cleans up those lands. So it's not easy, it's not short term, it's long term. But we're in the process of identifying exactly what needs to happen in the next steps. So during that public review, hundreds of comments were received. The Corps is in the process right now of responding to those comments. They're going to finalize the report in the fall and winter. We hope to have the EIR, which is for the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and it's also a combined National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA document. That will be coming to the council for certification in January 2015. That is our plan.
Okay.
Okay? And so once we have that, we can go get our project authorized by Congress. We need to have a project that has a chief's report, and that means the chief of engineers, the top engineer in the Army Corps of Engineers, will take that environmental document and report as a complete package and will recommend it. He'll recommend it to the administration, and he'll recommend it to Congress. We did not make it into the last Water Resources Reform and Development Act at the federal level because we did not have a completed chief's report. That was the criterion they used. So we are hoping to have a completed chief's report in the spring and go before the Civil Works Review Board next July. And so we'll have a document that then is eligible to be authorized by Congress. So it's like 2 A's at Congress. The first one's authorization. The second one is appropriations. So once we have an authorized project, we can then get funds appropriated to build that project. So it's all moving. And apparently, compared to projects nationwide, we're lightning speed on this, although it seems a lot longer for the LA stakeholders.
Sure.
But those are the next steps.
That's a great explanation, and no one can explain it like you can. It's just a fact, and we really appreciate that. And colleagues, just real quickly, we have this time frame that we're looking at, so we are required to have at least a 50-50 match for Alternative 20. It's $1 billion. We're talking $500 million or more. So my focus on the river is to come up with the mechanism for the match during this process. So that's what we're looking at now, and moving forward, we'll begin really scoping and measuring all of that out. And there are approaches to statewide policy in relation to tax increment financing along the river that we're looking at. So that'll be coming to our committee in the coming months. I love the explanation, and I really appreciate that. time is of the essence. I know that Gil has to go to committee. I want to just ask one more question, and this is probably the last item. Water bond. So we know that the governor has signed the water bond. It's going to go to the ballot in November. Knock wood. I'll knock my gavel that it gets passed. And that brings really great resources, the way it's articulated. It's beautifully written, which brings resources to this region in terms of watershed restoration, et cetera. Explain how that might look. If you look into a crystal ball, it passes, what you're thinking about water bond resources coming our way.
Okay. I'm definitely not an expert on the water bond, but I do know that it's incredibly encouraging. And now more than ever, it's important that we remain regionally focused. So as you know, the water bond is important to the entire state, to our entire region. We need to look at the river regionally. There's going to be a lot in the river or in the water bond for the upstream watershed. So we need to look at the multi-benefit nature of projects, and we need to build those partnerships and rely on our partners like never before to really articulate our story of how the LA River revitalization is central to not only creating new parks and open space and helping with water quality and water supply, but also with, public health connections and leveraging additional economic development, all those kind of things, so that we can show those multi-benefit and long-term benefits that are multiplier effects in the water bond. So we'll be working with the conservancies, we'll be working with the other cities, we'll be working with pretty much everybody in their cousin.
Terrific, and the focus isn't so narrow it's 32 miles of the river, and I want to, just kind of highlight that fact that it's not all about Alternative 20 at the river. That's
Right.
certainly huge, but we've got 32 miles, and we are focused. All right, seeing as there's no public comment, I would like to just make some recommendations. We didn't get to this, but, the clock is running out on us, and that is, we know that the Army Corps of Engineers revised a way to permit activity in the river, and we just, we've had really 2 wonderfully successful kayaking experiences. And I will say that the Sepulveda has one more weekend of kayaking until next week, till the 14th.
Oh, it does? Okay, thank you.
Till the 14th. So you can still kayak at Sepulveda Basin. Contact the MRC for details, but it's the last weekend of kayaking at Sepulveda. Maybe I'll get out there. I don't want to commit, but if you could, let's take a look at maybe next report back on the 408 permit through the Army Corps of Engineers on the permitting process through the Army Corps of Engineers. I want to demystify that process so that we can be that we can be useful, so that I can be useful in terms of permitting at the river, because we know it's Army Corps of Engineers controlled, and that's always been somewhat mysterious to me as well. And I think that'll help our constituents. There was a kayaking contest over the weekend, so there are things happening more and more, and I would encourage more of it. So thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you. Go Team River.
Be continued pending the report?
Let's see, note and file pending my suggestion on the report back on the 408 permitting process through Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And with that being said, this meeting is adjourned.